missing Joey's little Joey gets that little shoulder shaking
But it's good to be back.
It is good to be back, my friend. Happy to be here with you.
Good to be back again. Another week to die on this hill. And listen, I don't know about you, but I'm getting excited because I know this is more your time of year too. You know, the summer's winding down, which you hate. I know you're a summer guy. You love the warm weather. But the thing is, you're not big into the summertime sports. You're not the biggest. I would say baseball probably falls third or fourth on your list of sports.
Probably more like fourth or fifth.
Would you put baseball behind soccer?
Major League Soccer or Euro Soccer?
Either.
Euro Soccer.
No, I'm not talking World Cup. I'm not talking like Olympic. I'm talking just like regular Euro League Soccer. You're putting.
Yeah, I would put Euro League Soccer. But the problem is Euro League Soccer games air at like 9 a.m. on a Saturday, and I'm not. Even if I'm up at 9 a.m. on a Saturday, it's because I'm like driving down the shore. Like I am not up at 9 a.m. on a Saturday to stare at a television. Like it's just not going to happen. But so yeah, I'd probably put baseball.
I think you got to put it fourth. I think you watch more baseball then. Is pretty much what you're telling me. Even if you don't like it, you watch more of it.
I probably watch about the same amount if we're being completely honest. I mean,
but either way, not your time of year. But your favorite sports time of year though is the fall. Yes, if I'm not mistaken.
It is.
It's football. It's basketball coming back. It's hockey coming back. It's getting into the seasons, the holidays.
The meat of the sports world is about to. We're getting closer and closer. I mean, preseason basketball and preseason hockey both start at the end of September. They run through about the third week of October, with both seasons starting in that last week of October. By that point, you're full swing into the NFL season. You've figured out whether or not your fantasy team's going to suck or you have a chance for the playoffs, so you kind of know where you're at with that. But, and I mean, I guess if we are talking baseball, I mean, it is the best time to watch baseball because, I mean, unless you're probably a Mets fan, but they might act. I don't honestly have any idea where they are in the standings. I just saw people hyping up the walk-off home run, but ironically enough, the hype was more related to how they beat the Orioles last night, which moved the Yankees into first place. So I actually saw more Yankee fans that I know celebrating that Mets walk-off than I saw Mets fans. So that kind of told the story to me about exactly where the Mets are really at right now this time of the year. But yeah, no, I don't like seeing the summer come to an end, but the softening of the blow is the fact that football gets going and then, you know, hockey and basketball are surely behind it. So it softens.
And it is the best time for baseball because at least you're getting into the playoffs, you're getting into that World Series, you're getting that late season push. Again, two equinoxes to me in the sports world is one, you get this in the fall when all this is going on, and then you get it again in the spring when, you know, basketball and hockey and all that's ending and baseball starting and football just ended. Like, you get all that mix from, like, you know. So it's two really good times a year. This is, again, one of the best. And, yeah, football-wise, it's, you know, it's go time. And that's kind of where I want to go with you guys tonight.
It's fantasy draft season. That's your first little teaser of football. We touched on it, I think, last week. The fact that we did our one draft so early. Kind of got the itch going a little earlier in the summer than I'm used to, but I'm not mad about it.
I'm not mad about it either. We did our first draft, so I mean we're into it. My mind's thinking it already. But joining us also to talk some football tonight on the phone, Mr. Eric Pfeiffer. How you doing?
I'm doing great, and I've done 23 drafts already.
Jesus.
Yeah, well, you got too many. I'm talking legitimate, like, fantasy leagues with friends, not just ones that, like, you kind of... Because I know you do a lot on the DraftKings, you do a lot on some of the sports books, so I know you diversify your fantasy world.
My portfolio.
Yeah, you diversify the portfolio, but as far as, you know, real leagues, though, I mean, I'm pumped. We got our draft coming up Labor Day, right? On 7 o'clock Labor Day or something like that?
I'm talking $100,000 first prizes, so I'm talking real leagues, bro.
Yeah, but but that's with 50,000 entries or 20,000 entries. You know, it's a much bigger pool of people.
Yeah.
Oh
Much
yeah,
bigger.
like I said, dude. So the great thing about the best ball leagues, like I said, the 23 I've done have been best balls. The best thing about them is you're put in a league of 12, right? And then you have to get top 2 to move on. So it's weeks 1 through 14. You got to get top 2 to move on to the next week, and then there you got to win out of the 12 that you're placed with there, and then it rolls on into the last week of the season. So it's like a tier type of thing. So weeks 1 through 14, your best ball, but you're not changing your lineup. You're not adding, dropping. It's whatever you draft. That's your team. Best lineup each week goes in. Total points are added week to week. And that's how. So last year I did like 20, and I think I had about 7 move on to the second round, which to me is a pretty good percentage.
Yeah, it's a pretty good percentage. Yes,
I mean 20% is the close ratio for my sales reps. So I won't. I got nothing to say negatively about 20%.
But know what I do have something negatively to say though about, and I'm going to start right here, especially with Eric on the phone with us. I mean, come on, Dave. I'm going to use exactly what you said before we started this show. Is Daniel Jones looks like he's in mid-season form right now, and it's depressing already. And I don't want to be like, I'm excited about the season, but at the same time, every time I look at Daniel Jones and I look at this roster, I'm like, oh my God, this year is just going to be a disaster. Talk me off a ledge here. Tell me what I'm missing. But Daniel Jones, to me, kind of sucks. And I don't know how else to state that. Like, he's not very good. Like, he's average at best, and that's only if you manage the amount that he actually puts the ball in the air. Like, and Neighbors needs the ball. You have to feed that man. He's a guy who looks hungry. He looks like he wants some catches. I don't know if I have the faith in Daniel Jones to be able to get him the ball. I think he'll be able to make spectacular catches that'll make Daniel Jones look good. But I don't know if he's got the actual talent to play with a guy like Neighbors, and I'm a little nervous, so I'm still hoping deep down Dak next season.
Oh my God, will you stop at that thorn in my side?
Until the Cowboys sign him, I'm on that horse. I'm sorry. I'm dying on that hill.
Go ahead, Fife. I'll let you run with this one.
It depends on how you look at it, too. Like, it depends on how you look at it, too. Like, the bad throws are going to make Neighbors look extremely good, and everybody's still going to know it's a bad throw. Give me 1 sec. I'm pulling up to the window here.
All right. Well, Fife's on his order for before work, so respect
6
that.
shots of espresso straight to the face.
Look, what I will say is, yes, I do agree. I think Neighbors is going to make Jones look really damn good. But I heard this, I want to say yesterday, actually. Daniel Jones hasn't thrown 3 touchdowns in a game since 2019, which is just insane to think about. Like, I mean, throwing 3 touchdowns in the NFL, like, it's not a every week thing for the top, tier quarterbacks, but it's a pretty consistent thing. I mean, it's I'd say 1 out of every 3 games a quarterback's going to throw 3 touchdowns. I mean, give or take, based off of the quarterback's name. But I mean, overall, 3 touchdown passes in a game. That's not some astronomical
the last time he did
number.
That was 2019.
Yeah, so
it's awful.
That's you're talking 5 years. So we're not even saying like, it was before he got the year before he got hurt, and like he's just getting cut short because of the injury that happened last year. Like, so you have that and then you also have the fact that the number one thing he threatens defenses with is his ability to scramble and run. And coming off of I believe it was an ACL injury he had.
Yeah.
Right. So coming off an ACL injury, look, the way guys heal from that is way different than it was years before. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But you're still not you that first year, right? Like your top speed isn't what it used to be. Like your ability to cut isn't exactly what it used to be. And yeah, it can get better throughout the year, but that was a big component for him. So are there a lot of red flags? Are there a lot of things when it comes down to Daniel Jones that I would be concerned about? Yes. What I will say, though, is that the Giants' investment in their offensive line this offseason could potentially really help that. Give him a little bit more time, because Daniel Jones is the guy where if he is under pressure, he panics and makes horrible decisions. Sometimes the sack is the best play. Sometimes throwing it out of bounds is the best play, right? And he panics and he tries to make a play, which leads to the turnover. That's part of what caused him so many issues with fumbles early in his career. And you just got to think to yourself, or hope as a Giants fan, that this offensive line that they're putting together could be the difference maker to get this team back into the playoffs. But at the same time, the Giants' track record for drafting or bringing in free agent offensive lines and putting together a solid core five is not good. Like they have not been able to do it in a long time. Probably 2011 was the last really good, or 2012 maybe was really the last consistently good offensive line that they had. We're a decade plus removed from that. They've drafted them in the first round. Like they've signed free agents. They haven't been ignorant to the fact that the offensive line is a major problem for them. They have just struck out when it came down to the investments that they've made in it. And as a Giants fan, you got to hope that that's not the case this year. They do. I think Montgomery's a good running back for him. I don't think I don't think he's all pro level, but I think he's a good, consistent running back. The rookie that they have this year, McShay, I think is something like that is his name. I mean, he leads the preseason in yards after contact, broken tackles, things like that. So you might have a nice 1-2 punch with your running game, which in turn puts you in a position where you are able to take some pressure off of Jones. But when it's all said and done, it's a quarterback league. There's no other way to put it. It's a quarterback league. You need a guy that can make plays at the moment that they are needed, right? Like it's not the easy, drop and dunk passing game where it's little screen plays and dump offs and slant routes. Like you need the guy that with 2 minutes left, right, down 6 points or down 5 points or down 4 points, right? The guy that can take control of that offense and execute. And Daniel Jones has really given nobody any reason to believe that they're able to do that. He's able to do that. So I can't talk you off the ledge, but what I can confidently say is the Giants invested into that offensive line. And if they got it right, then Daniel Jones could potentially have a good season. Great season, no. Pro Bowl season, no. But a good enough season is if he doesn't turn over the ball and he stays within himself, he can be a serviceable quarterback. And if you can play defense and run the ball, you could become a playoff team. The NFC is not stacked the way the AFC is. So you can still pull off that second wild card spot. Right, Dallas doesn't get things figured out with Prescott and CeeDee Lamb. They might fall off a little bit. Philly, I've said it every time I've ever talked about Jalen Hurts. I think we saw just as much of what Jalen Hurts could be in the back half of last year as you did the year before. So I think both can be true. Like anything can happen. That's why people love football, because yeah, you have your 2 or 3 teams that year in or year out are going to be competitive and be your Super Bowl favorites. But there's always teams that come out and surprise you, and there's always teams that, genuinely pull something out that nobody saw happening. Like the Giants 2 years ago, making the playoffs and winning a playoff game on the road. Nobody saw that happening. Now, Minnesota really isn't a team that you want to set your bar up against, but still didn't see it happening. So you don't know, but I can't sit here and say that I'd have the utmost faith in Daniel Jones. And until you see their the starting 5 offensive line play together for the Giants, I have no idea what to expect. At least the Giants don't have to start the year off against Dallas or Philly, a division rival that is a better team than the Giants are. So they're not going to start the year with a 40-0 loss at home. Right, like that. I just think it's fair to be confident that that's not going to happen.
I'm not confident that's not going to happen. The only thing I'm confident in.
I'll be right back. Keep going.
The only thing I'm confident in is that there's one play in the game I saw the other night against the Texans where I don't know if you saw it, and I had to look it up while you were talking because I had to get his name. Not a name that I knew. But this man needs to be on the team because this team to me is a redo of the tryhards. This team to me is Daniel Jones knowing he has to play well this year or he's not getting the second half of his contract. He's gone. He has to know this, and he does. So I think you're going to get tryhards out of him, but another guy trying real hard in the preseason.
I saw that.
Did you see the defensive tackle, Elijah Chapman? Had to look it up because I wasn't sure of his name. Never heard of this man before. Running down, running back from scrimmage, but ran him down, 40 yards or so?
About 40 yards, and if you actually start from the beginning,
17 seconds. He did the 40 or whatever it was.
If you actually look, when he gets full stride, the running back's got him by about 5 full yards.
Yeah,
and the running back gets a little tripped up by the safety or the corner to slow him down a touch, and that D tackle full steam ahead. That's the guy that's showing the coaches and the GM and not only with the Giants organization but around the league, showing guys that, hey, like, I don't care, preseason, regular season, I'm busting my ass, and that's
tryhard I want on the team.
That's an effort play right there that not many players, including your biggest names in the league, are going to make, and that does deserve some respect.
The big man's got some wheels too.
Yeah.
Give it to him. He chased him down.
Me. I could have a 10-yard freaking lead on that guy, and he'd still beat me.
Oh, he's running me down.
Yeah,
for sure.
I hell no. That was impressive. And I got to shout out Mama H in the chat. She said bench Daniel Jones, but I said ain't happening this year.
You can't bench him this year, unfortunately, because you only got Tommy Cutlets behind him. You got nothing else behind him now. Drew Lock's hurt.
Tommy DeVito, forget about it. But yeah, I mean, I think, look, I like Dable as a coach, man. I think that he's a guy that has the potential. Like, I know the Giants' hope were that he was going to be able to get out of Daniel Jones what he was able to get out of Josh Allen as a coordinator.
I got a hot take.
He's just not Josh Allen.
I got a hot take. I think Dable needs to separate himself from Shane. I think Shane's making the wrong moves with the personnel. And I think he needs to separate himself. And I don't think it's going to happen because I kind of think they're a package deal, and I have a feeling Dable would be going before Shane anyway. But I'm saying that Dable, I think, would be better if he was maybe – because I know they're in lockstep. I know they came together from Buffalo. I know that they have the same – but to me, I just don't like the moves Shane's made. I don't like some of the things he's done. And again, he's just pretty much taken the team that he had in Buffalo and just tried to make it Buffalo South. But instead, we got, we don't have Josh Allen. We have the Temu version of Josh Allen. And you're not going to win with that.
Well, I know Fife said he disagreed. I know what my thoughts are, but Fife, if you're with us, my man, I'd love to pass it over to you.
So everything you were saying about the offensive line, I think they made the right moves, bringing in the right guys. I think they brought in quality offensive linemen this year. I think the biggest thing for the offensive line to be good is going to be health. As long as they stay healthy, I think that line's going to be able to make a pocket. I think what they've done with their offense is they brought in personnel to where now, after this year, if Daniel Jones has a bad year, there's still some people out there who believe in this guy, Danny Dimes this, Danny Dimes that. I mean, I hope the best for him because I'm a Giants fan and I want to win, but if you're a Daniel Jones hater, you got to be hoping he has a bad year right now because this roster they've taken it. So they're getting out of the old regime. It's taken a while to get rid of the old regime's guys and bring in their guys, right? So it's not complete yet, but I can see where it's going. And what they did this year was they've given him Malik Neighbors. They've replaced Saquon Barkley with a three-headed monster, all right, with this kid Tyrone Tracy, who's supposed to be dynamic out of the backfield as a pass catcher. You got Singletary, who's going to be able to get you 4 yards in a cloud of dust. And you got Gray, who we're going to have to figure out who Eric Gray is, right? But what they've done is now if Jones fails this year, they can cut ties with him, no questions asked. Nobody's going to say a word because I believe that the offensive roster they've put in front of him should be able to succeed. So what they've done is they've given these guys a year now with Jones to build chemistry for when they bring in whoever it may be, whether it's a proven guy, which I'm not sure what's going to be available this offseason in proven guys, or if it's going to be the guy they draft for the future, but they got to hit that one right. But I think right now Daniel Jones is a placeholder under center for that offense. And they've put together a offensive roster again where they can cut ties with him. My biggest question is the secondary, but they did bolster their pass rush, so a good pass rush can cover up weaknesses in the secondary. But the biggest thing too, Dave, is like you said, 2 minutes, down 6, down 7. You got it down 3. You got to be able to drive downfield and get yourself that win. And there was a stat I saw a couple weeks ago, and I can't quote it exactly. It was when they were talking about Jalen Hurts, and they said that in the last 15 years, the Super Bowl winning quarterbacks have averaged 30 passing touchdowns, about 4,000 yards passing, and maybe 100 yards rushing with 2 rushing touchdowns, which means they fell over the goal line from 1 yard out twice. So running quarterbacks just are not winning Super Bowls over the last 15 years. And part of the reason for that is when you get down and you have to have that dynamic drive in the playoffs where you need to be able to sling the thing around and make good decisions, 3-step drop out, man, maybe a 5-step drop out. The running quarterbacks don't do that as well. So there's always not too many Super Bowl winning teams go through the playoffs without having one of those drives. So if you have a guy who runs, he's not going to get out of bounds every time. You just can't always get to the sideline. So you either burn timeout or you're out of timeouts and the clock's ticking. Now you got to hurry up. So whereas if you can sling the ball downfield 25, 30 yards at a clip, to me, I think running quarterbacks don't win Super Bowls is because they don't have the arm to make that dynamic drive at the end of the game. And that's where, you're talking about a guy, granted, people are already making excuses for him. Well, he hasn't played since November. Look, dude, you're 2 yards into your end zone. When you drop back, your tight end came off the line open, and you could see that was his read. And he didn't throw it. And then when he had a guy on his shoulder, he decided to throw it to the other team 6 yards out so they could run it in for a touchdown. I get it. It's preseason. He hasn't played in a while. But that's panic. So if you're going to panic in that situation, what are you going to do in the playoffs when you got to drive downfield to win the game? You're going to fucking panic because that's in your blood. It's your nature. I hope the best for the guy. I want the team to win every year. I've never been a guy who wants to see my team lose so he can get a better player next year. I feel like you can figure that out, whether it's through trades to move up or bring in free agents in the offseason. I don't think that you need to lose to have a good football team. So I hope they win. I hope he figures it out. I hope they give him a clean pocket all year long and he makes great plays. And when the play's not there, he runs downfield. The people who say that Tommy DeVito should go in the game, you guys are fucking delusional. All right? Tommy Cutlets is not an NFL starting quarterback. And Drew Lock, the guy can make some throws, but is that the guy you want running your offense? I think they're stuck with Daniel Jones right now. They got to give him the year unless he gets hurt. If he gets hurt, he's out. If he plays like shit, he's out because they put an offense around him that can succeed. And you guys know me. I'm a big Penn State fan. I was happy they didn't give Saquon Barkley the money. Like, am I upset that he went to the Eagles? Absolutely. But I'm very happy they didn't give him the bag. And that's where Eric and I disagree. I think Shane has brought in the right guy. I think they had a very good offseason, probably the best offseason they've had in 10 years. I think they had a very good draft this year. They filled holes throughout the draft. The only thing I wish they would have done was late rounds, grab that quarterback that went to New England behind Drake May. Was it Milton?
Yeah.
I was salivating over that guy. And from everything I've heard out of their camp, again, it's practice. And he's probably throwing against second, third stringers. But the kid's got an arm, and he makes good decisions, and he's dynamic. He's got legs. I think that's a low-risk, high-reward type of thing if it pans out. So that was one guy I was hoping they were going to take in the later rounds that they didn't. But other than that, I think they had a really good draft. I think that they brought in good players who were overlooked for the wrong reasons, and they can be dynamic in this league, like Tyler Nubin, the safety. And I think Malik Neighbors was the right pick. And honestly, I think if it was between Neighbors and Harrison Jr., they still would have went with Neighbors if Harrison Jr. was there.
I thought Harrison Jr. was higher on their board, though.
To me, the way they were talking about it was, and that could have been the way they edited it, but to me, the way they were talking about it seemed like Dable was like salivating over Neighbors, and he wanted Neighbors.
Well,
Neighbors just
they've done
that.
well drafting LSU wide receivers.
He's got that vicious dog to him, dude. You can see it. Whereas like Harrison Jr. is polished, and he's I would say he's a pro because he came up in the league and he knows how to do it. I think that Neighbors plays with a little bit more of an edge, where Marvin Harrison Jr. is a bit more technical. If that's how I had to, and I don't think either one is like far and away above the other one. But I think that the way Dable is, he wanted a guy who has edge, and I also like some of the things I've seen out of Neighbors where if his route's not there, he finds an open. Like he already knows how to find soft spots and zones and stuff like that. So I feel like you have a couple of guys who can take the top off the defense with Slayton and Hyatt. And then you have your underneath guy and Wan'Dale Robinson if he can stay healthy. Like I think they have a good receiving core. I really do. And then everything else they brought in was just add-ons, I guess, like guys who are not going to see the field. But I think they have a good receiving core. And I like the running. I was so happy they signed Singletary because I feel like when Barkley would get up to the line and there wasn't a hole, and granted it wasn't a good offensive line ever for him.
Yeah, but I just think it's a wait and see before we get that deep into that. Like, yeah, I know you're saying
but when there wasn't a hole, he jumped laterally, whereas I think Devin Singletary sort of cuts. Like he finds the hole, he gets skinny, and he slants up into the hole that
he
is
does
there.
that now, but he's a year older. Eventually, is he going to become fat, and I hate to say it, but fat shit Dane who just falls backwards instead of forwards? Like, eventually, is he going to get hit a tipping point where he's going to start going the other way? That's what I'm worried about. I mean, we're just becoming Buffalo South, but I want to kind of get us off the Giants for a minute here.
But I'm saying, I'm happy. I'm really happy they didn't sign Barkley for that money. I'm so happy.
Well, one guy who's happy that he no longer has a coach, and it's getting pretty contentious, but we heard stuff happening back then, but did you guys hear about Flores and Tua's comments about Flores?
They were not the most positive comments to say. Tua was very open and honest, which you don't get a lot in sports world, and I was pretty shocked to hear what he had to say.
I mean, I wasn't shocked but at the same time, like, it's the way of the league now. Like, you can't yell at players and do things like an old school coach just doesn't resonate with players the same way nowadays. So, like, this coach Bill Flores telling him he sucked every day and telling him that he was no good and they should have another quarterback here and he didn't really want him, this, that, and the other, trying to use that tough love motivation that he thought might work. Didn't really work on Tua, but yet McDaniel seems to have gotten the best out of him to the point where he's getting paid like a top 5 quarterback now, even though we all know he really hasn't won anything yet. And this comes from a guy who likes him, Bama guy here. Roll Tide. I'm even wearing the shirt. But I'm just saying, like, Tua's got to. But again, I think they're a juggernaut offense. You want to talk about weapons? I think they got weapons for days there. And I mean, you don't even think about Odell Beckham being like a 4th receiver now on that team, and the amount of talent that they have. But I mean,
if Odell Beckham was your number one, you'd be in trouble.
I mean, I think Tua's shown flashes that at times he could be a top quarterback in this league. And, I mean, I hope Flores learned from that. I think he says he has. He says he's evolved from that, whatever. But at the same time, like, Tua's a lot better. And I think Flores is probably kicking himself now because, like, if he wasn't that way, would he still be there? Would something be different happen? Would something different be happening?
You have to look at it like this, right? Whether it's managing football players, managing employees at a company, whatever, right? Any type of management level of a position, right? Me and you actually talked about this before a show a couple weeks ago, right? Like, every single person you manage has to be managed differently. There is no overlapping style of management that works for every single person. So maybe Flores treating people like that on the team might have worked for certain guys, but it didn't work for Tua. Mm-hmm. And it impacted Tua in a negative way to the point where he was willing to say that in an interview, knowing the world that we live in, knowing that was going to get somewhere. Now, I respect to his openness and honestness, honestness. I don't think that's a word. Openness and honesty, but I also respect how Flores handled it. Right, he responded by saying, "Look, part of being a coach is evolving." It's the same thing with management in general, right? Part of it's evolving, learning, and growing, and saying, "Hey, I made a mistake here." Right now, in some instances, especially in the real world. Right. Yeah. Well, technically, even in football, right? If you're not managing your team the right way, or you're managing your people the right way, guess what? You're going to get replaced, and they're going to find somebody that can. And they found somebody that manages Tua the right way. And Flores is a guy that's always had success as a defensive coordinator. Who, let's be honest, those are the guys that choose to run full speed at other grown men and hit them as hard as they possibly can. So they probably got a little bit of a tougher skin. They're probably okay with a guy pushing them like that. So I don't have an issue with either side. I think Tua is just being open and honest. And I think Flores responded to it as professionally as possibly he could, right? Now, if they see each other behind closed doors, is Flores going to have some words or anything like that? Who the hell knows, right? There's no way for any of us to know. But honestly, I was shocked by the comments because you just usually don't hear athletes be that open and honest about former coaches, teammates, even general managers, ownership. Like, they usually kind of just say, hey, I'm not going to answer that, and you get all the information you need just by that simple statement. So for him to be that open and honest, and for Flores to react the way he did, I think to me, it's a story, but it's not like a blowing up, like, social media trending type of story. It's one of those things where, like, overall, you got to kind of tip your hat to each guy for what Tua being open and honest, and B, for Flores handling it the way he did. Fife, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add to that one, though.
No, it's just, as a coach, you need to be able to, you can be a hard-nosed coach, but you at the same time need to know how to relate to your players. Like you said, each guy's different. So you need to figure out how to be relatable and how to relate to guys. And if you're just hard-nosed all the time, you're going to lose guys. You're going to lose people, especially if you're not winning. Winning it changes everything, right? If you're doing that and you come out of the gates and you're winning. But look at it this way: the greatest coach of all time, or at least the greatest coach we got to see, even lost his franchise, his team, over the last few years, and Bill Belichick, right? Because he was just. It was the Patriot way. It was the Bill way. And then once that wasn't working, these guys didn't want to hear that crap no more. They didn't want to be held to that standard anymore. And he's the type of guy that players loved, and he could relate to him. But, they had enough of that same old rigmarole, right? It's the way I see, like, John Tortorella in hockey, too. Like, John Tortorella is one of those guys. He's very hard-nosed coach. And he's generally brought in, what I've noticed over the last maybe decade or so, is Tortorella is brought in to right the ship, but he's never there once after the ship is righted, and teams go on like the Rangers. He was with the Rangers. He changed that franchise around, dude. He got them disciplined, and they were working right and everything like that. And then when it was time for them to go on and win a cup, they went and found a new coach. And they still haven't won a cup yet. But eventually, when you're that hard-nosed all the time, you lose those guys, especially guys making millions and millions of dollars who have a choice to just say, you know what, screw it. I'm going to wait till the next guy comes in, because they know all they got to do is lose and they'll get a new coach.
Or the younger, hold my hand generation participation trophy group. I mean, that's a whole nother issue that these hard-nosed coaches are going to be dealing with as the years go by.
Well, and then on the other hand of it, I don't know if you guys heard, like Peyton Manning did this show on Netflix last year. It was about quarterbacks, right? It was Patrick Mahomes, Marcus Mariota, another guy who was just back up and coming. And I thought it was very boring. Like, I thought the personalities were boring. So this year, Netflix did it with receivers instead. Peyton Manning was still the producer. They couldn't get any quarterbacks to agree. They did it with receivers. They had Devontae Adams, Deebo Samuel, Justin Jefferson, George Kittle, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. And it was awesome. Like, if you can get on there and watch that on Netflix receiver, it's great. But what happened was, I know you guys remember midseason or towards the end of the year last year, Josh McDaniel got fired and Antonio Pierce took over. Well, you get a little bit of a behind-the-scenes look. Devontae Adams was extremely frustrated there with the quarterbacking situation, with everything that was going on. And he came out, when Antonio Pierce was the coach, he came out and played a game. His shoulder was banged up, or he was hurt. and he came out and he played his ass off. And Antonio Pierce, in an interview during that episode, said, I totally changed the way I handle Davante Adams now. Right. So that's a coach who's adjusting to his player because he knows he can trust him to come out and be a gamer and do the right thing. So it's really interesting if you can watch it. It's a great episode, and it's good to see a guy like Antonio Pierce be able to change his perspective of a player that quickly and know that he can manage him differently than he'll manage somebody else. And that's the way it is. They're all personalities. You got to know how to manage them, just like you said.
Speaking of a guy who's hard to manage, I just had an epiphany while you were talking. You brought up Davante Adams. And there's a guy who's been a bit of a headache so far, we'll call it, this offseason, and that's Brandon Ayuk, who doesn't want to go anywhere with the Steelers unless it's for whatever. What about this trade? I'm going to throw a trade out there for you guys. Straight up. Brandon Ayuk for Davante Adams. Just swap them. Ayuk gets his new deal with the Raiders, can do whatever he wants there, and San Fran takes back Davante Adams and makes them even more dangerous. I don't know. I see it as a win-win all around. I don't know why these two teams aren't talking yet. Somebody should get on the horn and let them know that, I mean, the money kind of works out the same. Might as well just get it done. But he won't go there. To be honest, Ayuk will screw that whole thing up. He won't want to go there. I guarantee you it wouldn't be Davante Adams. Davante Adams would go to San Fran in a heartbeat. Right. Ayuk wants out. He only wants to go to Pittsburgh, though.
Dude, you'd have to pay a lot more than Brandon Ayuk for Davante Adams.
I don't know if you would. I got to be honest.
You would.
For use-wise, too, because Ayuk's
the most
younger.
polished receiver in the league.
I
just go.
Come on.
I don't know about a lot more, Fife, but I do agree. I don't think that's a trade that
I think
the Raiders would do straight up.
The Raiders aren't doing that.
Because the money they'd have to commit. And the reason why I don't say a lot more, though, is because with all due respect to Davante Adams, I mean, he probably has 1 to 2 more like being a top flight receiver years left in him before he kind of starts to fade into that number 2 role and that the experienced savvy vet that you can have like he's still a really good receiver. But I think he maybe has 1 or 2 years where the benefit for the Raiders with Ayuk is you probably still have 4 to 5 years of him being a top flight wide receiver. But also, if there's one thing you've seen a lot that happens with this San Francisco team, is a lot of their guys tend to be more systematically successful. So if you're not putting them in a similar system to what you're running in San Fran, are you really going to get the same player that San Fran has? And I think that's why San Fran doesn't want to pay him the money that he's asking, because they probably look at him and say, we could replace you with another guy and within 2 years have that guy do the same things for us that you do.
Dude, Jawan Jennings right now is on their roster, can do the same things for them that Brandon Ayuk.
They like Ricky Pearsall a lot, too. I'm telling you. I think he's going to be a good player for them. They love his speed. They love his versatility.
As long as you can run black, San Fran will give you a chance at wide receiver. They believe they can teach you everything else. That you just got to be willing to block and put your nose in there.
Well, that's the thing. And Ayuk's fourth on the totem pole there. You know, McCaffrey, Debo, Kittle. Ayuk's a compliment to that roster. That's all he is. That's why he's. You can go back and listen to last week's episode where Eric and I talk about fantasy, but he's a boomer bust fantasy guy, and the reason for that is because every once in a while they'll game plan him in towards the end of the game where he'll go off for a monster like 50-yard touchdown catch, and he can make some great catches. But dude, I'm telling you, your perspective on what is left in the tank for Davante Adams will change if you go watch this show. The guy is friggin' impressive.
Yeah, I'm going to believe it when I see it. I won't wait to see it on the field. But what I do want to say is somebody we're not going to see on the field, but who's a focal point of their entire team, is how are the Bears not going to play Caleb Williams at all in the preseason?
He played last week.
He's not playing anymore.
But
again, not playing anymore in the preseason. Why isn't he out there getting more of those reps with his team? Getting more, because again, you could do so much in practice. You could do so much in drills, and you need the on the field experience. I'm sorry, you need the NFL experience. You need to get on there and feel the pace of the game because it's faster. It's a different game in the NFL. And I look at this as I'm looking at this team. They have never, ever been able to develop a quarterback. And I just don't believe that this is the right strategy in developing a very young quarterback. Now, Dave, I see you're pointing out real quick before we hop to Caleb Williams, just to go back to Devontae Adams. He is 31 years old already. He'll
1 to 2 years, man.
Yeah,
that 32, 33 window,
34.
he still will play, but he's not going to be a number one wide receiver.
Yeah.
He's just not.
Yeah, so, but as far as a guy who's going to be around for a long time, or at least the Bears hope so, they spent a number 1 pick on him. They think that highly of him, but I just don't see it. And again, I want you guys to talk me off the ledge because I'm going to die on this hill. I'm calling Caleb Williams' rookie season a bust, and that's with all the weapons they just gave him. And that's going to be hard to do because those weapons are good. He got Roma Dunzier as a rookie. They brought in Keenan Allen, who's a catch monster when he's healthy. DJ Moore is looking to have a good year. They bring in DeAndre Swift. This is arguably, they packed talent around this guy so he could not fail. But yet I still somehow see the Bears not making the playoffs and it being a failure. Is it a failure? Well, I guess let me pose that to you guys. Is it a failure this year if the Bears don't make the playoffs? Because I think it is. I don't think you go out and spend a number 1 pick, go out and sign the guys you sign unless you're trying to at least be a playoff team. And I got to think it's a failure if you're under 500 and don't make it.
Look, I'm going to answer this very simply. If they're not competing for the playoffs, I do think it's a failure. If they don't make the playoffs, I don't think it's a failure, simply due to the fact that they're probably the 3rd best team in their own division.
They are, at best.
So with that being case, you should be competing for a playoff spot, but if they don't make it, I don't consider that a failure.
I also don't think the 3rd preseason game is going to be any difference maker in whether I don't think that's going to change the outcome of their season.
I remember, but
I'm going to go.
I'm going to be the old man
on a limb here. I'm going to die on this hill.
Oh, boy. Right? He's ready. I'm ready.
I'm going with the Bears are going to have a 9-win season.
All right, so you think they're over 500? I just don't see them getting there.
I don't think they're over 500. But can I tell you why?
Sure.
Because the over/under on the Bears season is 8.5, and
people are riding high on Williams.
Everyone is smashing the under. So when the fuck does Vegas lose a bet like that? Never. So that's why I think they're going to be a 9-win team. Vegas knows, baby.
Nah, they'll make it up on other teams. See, that's where they can afford to lose 1 bet here, 1 bet there. And again, they may end up changing the line.
Everyone is smashing the under? No way, dude.
Yeah, but again, if they're smashing the under, they usually change the line too. So you may see the line go down. It may go down to 7 or 7.5 by the time the season starts.
Well, they get the AFC South and the NFC West.
You want to play a little win-loss, win-win?
I mean, look, we could fly through this really, really quick. So they're home against Tennessee. I think they win that game. Are we all in agreement?
Yeah.
Five? Yeah. Okay. They're week 2 at Houston. I think they lose that game.
I think they lose.
5?
Okay. Yeah, lose.
Okay. At Indianapolis.
Tough. Win. I think I don't know. I'm
going to go with lose.
I'm going loose.
Okay, so right now, Fife, you got them at 2-1. Me and Eric got them at 1-2. Home against Los Angeles. I think they win that game. So
I think they win that game.
I'm sorry, the Rams. My bad.
Well, that's tough. I'll give them a win.
Okay, so you got 3-1. I got 2-2. We're both 2-2. Okay, home against Carolina. Carolina's probably once again the worst team in the entire NFL this year. So
that should be a win.
We're giving them that win. So now I got them at 3-2, and then you're 4-1, Fife. Then home against home against Jacksonville. I think they lose that game. So I got them back to 500. And that's a game.
I think they win that game.
That's in England.
In London.
Yeah, London. So that's Jacksonville's second home stadium. So I got them losing.
Yeah, I got them losing too. Jacksonville's made that trip a lot more.
I'm going with a win.
All right. So now you got them at what? 5-1.
5-1 through their first 6 games with
Good
their only
start.
For you.
we're seeing where you're leaning here. Okay.
We're 3-3, right?
So yeah. So at Washington, I think that
that's a win.
I think they win that game. You give it, and that's after their bye week too. So that's after their bye week.
I agree.
5-1 for you, or six. So you
that's
got
going to be a big media frenzy too with Daniels versus Caleb.
Yeah,
Sorry.
so 6-1 for Fife, and then 4-3 for me and you at Arizona. I think they lose that game.
I'm with you. I think they lose that game, especially if Kyler Murray's going to be anything with Marvin Harrison Jr. I got to think on the road 4:00 game. That's when they could lose.
So you pushing them to 7-1, Fife?
No.
Okay, so all right, so we'll say 6-2. Me and Eric got 4-4. So then they're home against New England. I'll give them that game because I don't think
I'll
they're
give them
that
that
good.
game
So
too.
5-4 and 7-2. Then we got home against Green Bay. I think they lose that game.
I think they lose it too.
5-5 for me and Eric. You giving them the win or the loss?
At home to win.
So 8-2, and me and you got 5-5.
Yeah.
Okay. So all right, they're already at that 8th win. So they just need one more with
Out of you.
7 games left. So then they're home against Minnesota. I'll give them that win.
I think they win that game.
So now me and Eric
Me
got
too.
6-5. You've got 9-2.
I win.
Yeah.
9-2.
Then they're at Detroit.
At
Loss.
Detroit, at San Francisco. We're all giving them losses in both those
I'm
games.
giving them losses in both of
Both
those.
of those games. Losses.
All right, so that puts you at 8-4, and me and you at 6-7. No, I'm not doing. Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
I'm at 9-4.
you're at 9-4. Okay, that's 13, 6-7. Okay,
Yep.
so and then at Minnesota,
I think they win that, so 7-7. Right?
yeah,
Yeah, so and Fife's can give them the win there, so that's what 10-4.
No, at Minnesota.
yeah,
I don't know, bro.
Monday night.
I think they stumble at Minnesota.
Okay, so that gives you 9-3,
No, 9-5.
9-5.
9-5, and me and you are 7-7.
Yep.
Okay, home against Detroit. I think they lose.
I think they lose.
I think they lose.
Okay, so 7-8 for us two,
Yep.
and 9-6.
Yep.
9-6 for Fife.
Then they're home for Seattle. Now that's a tough one.
I think they lose.
I think they lose too.
Seattle, I give them a win.
So there's your
home.
10th. There's your 10th win,
Yep.
and then they end the season at Green Bay.
And that's a loss.
That's a loss.
So you got them at 10-7,
We got them at 8-9.
8-9. So I think it's fair with the three of us. Vegas is spot on with your over under at 8.5.
Yeah.
Record it.
It's there.
It's recorded.
It's
recorded.
It's live for the
Play this
Facebook world
back.
to see. Or not Facebook. Well, anyway, YouTube.
Yeah.
By the way, while they're doing that, they can like, subscribe, share, follow.
They're gonna come out hot, bro.
Do all
They're
those
gonna
fun
come out hot
things.
out of the gates, and they're gonna stumble at the end.
So that run to start
And
the
in
season,
fairness-
I just don't see happening. I just don't.
All right,
Yeah,
so I
no,
got them
not for a rookie
splitting. I
QB.
got them splitting in their division with 2 teams and losing twice to Detroit. Right, so I think that's pretty fair.
I do think that's fair, but I think you having them go 6-1 to
If
start
I
the
had to
year
give
is
them,
insane.
if I had to give them one more loss, take away a win to make them 9-8, it would be that Rams game. That's the one that is the only one I'm questionable about.
Fair enough. I mean, look.
So if I had to
Like
to
we
waver
said,
somewhere,
Vegas
it'd be
is
that
right
Rams
about
game.
there where we're all thinking they should be. You have them at 9-8, then 10-7, 9-8, depending on which way you go with that Ram game, and we got them at 8-9.
Yeah.
So I mean, listen, that's what Vegas is trying to do. So again, people may be hammering the under, but that may be because not enough people have faith. Like again, I think if you ask me if there's a 50-50 chance of are they going to go over or under, I think there's a better chance of them going under. You know, I do. I just don't think it's a 50-50 shot there. I don't think that they have that high a ceiling. Like, I think their ceiling is what you hit there, 5 with 10. Like, I think that is absolute max if they have the best
ceiling.
year possible. I think they could be as low as a 5-win team if things go wrong. You know what I mean?
I think they could finish second in their division over Green Bay because I don't have any faith in Jordan Love. I think Jordan Love's going to throw 15, 20 picks this year.
No, I think Green Bay's a rare team, unlike the Bears, that can develop a quarterback.
I mean, they've kind of shown it for the last 30 years.
Yeah, they've not only 30, but they've Bart Starr before that. They have the track record that tells me I'm going to put my money on Green Bay, and I'm going to say you can go ahead and put it on Chicago, but I wouldn't hold your breath about Caleb Williams winning Rookie of the Year.
I trust Green Bay to develop quarterbacks the way I trust Green Bay to develop quarterbacks the way I trust Chicago to develop linebackers. Like, that's how I like that. That's where their similarities lie, in my opinion, is in abilities to develop players. Give me a defensive guy in Chicago, especially at the linebacker position. I'll trust them to develop just as much as I'll trust Green Bay to nail a freaking quarterback pick. It's just not even right. But yeah, so I mean, look, I think the Bears, right, like most teams in the league, right? There are a handful of teams, right? Like we said, going through that, right? I don't think there's anybody out there that doesn't think there's a team worse than Carolina. I think we all would agree Carolina is probably the worst team in the entire league, right?
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say when you look at the AFC North, you probably can expect all four teams to be above 500 if their quarterbacks stay healthy and Pittsburgh can, because that's I don't know what Pittsburgh's going to do with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields.
I don't know if I agree with that as the worst team in the league. I think the worst team in the league this year might be Denver. Like, I don't.
I mean, people are loving Bo Nix, man. People are loving
maybe he's
some
gonna
Bo
prove me
Nix.
wrong. I mean, listen, Auburn, Oregon. He's shown he could do it at multiple places. Maybe he could do it at the next level. Maybe he's that guy that they're trying to find next. Again, there are places that I would trust to develop. At least they developed Elway. They were smart enough to bring in a Peyton Manning. Maybe they found something in Bo Nix. But I'm looking at that team that if Bo Nix doesn't turn out, they could be a team as bad as Carolina, if not worse.
Carolina's still getting my vote for worst team in the league. I think
or Minnesota now without a quarterback. How good is Minnesota really going to be this year?
Well, you got to remember.
I look at them; they could be really bad.
Sam Darnold is a serviceable backup quarterback. Like, he's a serviceable backup quarterback. I'm just saying the guy wouldn't be in this league for as long as he has if he wasn't a serviceable backup quarterback. Go ahead, you can hit the button again if you want to, but there's plenty of players out there to pick from, and he's definitely a guy that has kept his career going by playing as a backup quarterback, which means coaching staffs and general managers see him with the ability to say, hey, if you got to fill in a handful of games for us, we believe you can win some of them. Is he good enough to lead a team to the playoffs? No. But we've watched Sam Darnold play. He has glimpses where he looks like you're like, oh, hey, you kind of belong in this league. And then most of the other moments are like, how are you still in this league? But either way,
I think he can. No, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, get the ball to Justin Jefferson, run the ball, play some decent defense, and you could still win 7 or 8 games.
Yeah. And
knick-knack, this, that, paddywhack, give a dog a bone.
I think he can support Justin Jefferson's fantasy numbers.
There you
as
go.
a top 5 pick in your top 5 pick in your league. I think he can support Justin Jefferson's fantasy numbers.
I got him at 7,
and that's going to be about it.
Yeah, PPR, I got him at 7. So listen, I get them the ball through the air. But again, I think those are probably going to be your handful of worst teams in the league, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm looking around. The only other team out there, which I mean, I heard they were terrible, and if this guy is terrible, and or he gets hurt again, I mean, could the Jets possibly be the worst team in the league without Aaron Rodgers? If they were to lose, I know they got Tyrod Taylor, he's serviceable, but I mean, I look at that as that would be like catastrophic. I think Douglas would have to go. I think Saleh would have to go. I think Rodgers. I think everybody would have to go.
Outside of their young stars, like Breece Hall.
I'll be honest with you. The way running backs go nowadays, I don't think they're going to re-sign Breece Hall.
I don't see a lot of running
Their
backs.
defense is too good.
Yeah,
their defense is too good to be the worst team.
But not without Hassan Reddick. And they're not getting anything done with him. He's asking for a trade. He wants out. So now you've lost one of your best defenders in Hall. They didn't
even have Reddick last year.
No, but they had Hall last year, and Hall had 10.5
They brought in
sacks
Reddick
last year.
because they lost their pass rusher from last year.
Yeah, and they only lost him because they went after Hall because they went after Reddick. They could have re-signed Hall for less money. Hall didn't really want to leave.
It's poor management all around in the New York Jets organization, which has been since as long as I can remember. No matter who's there, it's crazy, isn't it? I think we talk about this every year. Isn't it crazy how some franchises, no matter who's running them from a general manager standpoint, just can't get out of their own fucking way?
Yeah,
like the Browns. The Browns are one of those teams.
The Browns are always on that list.
I feel like the Commanders. I mean, think about them. I mean, since they won the Super Bowl in what 89 or 90 or 89, right? They won. It was them, then the Giants, and then the Cowboys, right?
Yeah,
right. Like since they won that Super Bowl, like. They haven't basically even sniffed the playoffs. The Bills are another one. Even when they're a really good team.
Did you hear about the Commanders? By the way, did you guys hear about this? There's a Native American group that's suing Daniel Snyder because they want the name back. Because they said it represented a certain chief, and that it was with pride that when they had it on their helmet and they wore it out there on the field, they were actually honoring him, not disrespecting him, and that they want the name back. Because they feel the Commanders is stupid, like we all do. They should have just been Washington, like I said. The 1 year they were just Washington is what they should have just left it. But now
the Washington football team. Yeah,
but now they have people suing them to get the name back.
That same group signed a petition when all the name changing shit started that they wanted them to keep the name. They had thousands and thousands of signatures from actual Native Americans that wanted them to keep the name. But, you know, a certain demographic of people who have nothing to do with it were offended. So they had to change it because, you know, whatever generation we live in these days is ridiculous. But, like, they could have went with something like the Braves or something and kept the Chiefs there, kept that guy, you know, kept that logo on the helmet, you know?
Yeah,
I don't know why they did a complete overhaul.
That's a rabbit hole that we could do an entire hour on if we're being honest. So
I gotta go clock in. Yeah, so I gotta get out of here.
All right, so really quick, do you think Houston is as good, better, or worse than they were last year? Because I think that's a great way for us to kind of wrap up tonight. So before you log off, just as good, better, or worse than they were last year.
I'm gonna say as good to maybe slightly worse.
Okay.
Ooh.
Okay.
I'm the opposite, my friend. I got to tell you, I know you got to run, but I look at this team and I think the ceiling is through the roof with this team. Adding Diggs, adding Mixon, giving Stroud more help. You got Nico Collins coming back. You got Tank Dell coming back. You have a really good young coach there who seems to be Dalton Schultz. Yeah. They have a good young defense led by one of my favorite guys coming out of college, Will Anderson. I'm very high on the Texans this year. I think they could be a very good team. I think they're going to be competing. I think that's going to be a tough division because I think Indianapolis is going to be better with Anthony Richardson
stays healthy.
Because I think they're another team that nobody talks about, but they could develop a quarterback. They developed Peyton Manning. They developed Andrew Luck. I think that they are another team.
I'll talk to you guys later.
All right, thanks for joining, brother.
Thanks for joining. And so I mean, I'm really high on what I think the Texans can do this year. And CJ Stroud, I think that they're a team that. They don't necessarily have the track record for developing the quarterbacks like some of those other teams do, but at the same time, the flashes you saw last year and the push they were able to make, I think it's going to be a tough division between them, Jacksonville, and Indianapolis. I think it's going to be tough. The Titans, yes, I'm not sold on Will Levis.
So that's where I was going to go, right? Like, because I agree. I think the Texans, Colts, Jaguars, if they stay healthy at the quarterback position and for the most part stay healthy, I mean, right, that's the key for every team with talent is like if your best guys can stay healthy, you're going to be competing as the year wears on, right? So I think the Titans... Right, Levis showed moments last year. He had some great throws. I remember that one huge game where Hopkins went off for like almost 200 yards, like 2 touchdowns. And then you had games where like they couldn't even score 10 points. Right, they add Tony Pollard, who another year removed from the broken leg, I think is going to be more of the Tony Pollard you saw when he was a combo back with Zeke. Wide receiver wise, they're not great, but they're not horrible. Their offensive weapons aren't anything special, but they're not anything where you're like, holy crap, you have like one of the worst offensive skill positions in the entire league. Defensively, what worries me about them is they've had a solid defense for years under Vrabel, but how much did Vrabel himself directly contribute to how important defense was to that team? So I think there's a lot of question marks in Tennessee. I think even if Levis plays well, they're still the worst team in the division. But I do think if he plays well, it sets them up for a bright future over the upcoming years because they don't have a lot of money invested in any player. So they could really, if Levis shows them this year, like, hey, I'm your guy, they have money they can start throwing around to bring in some better players. And like, because they were one of the few teams that paid a running back, right? They gave Pollard a little over $10 million a year for 3 years, right? So they're one of the few teams that paid a running back because they have money and they don't want to spend it everywhere because they don't know if they got their quarterback, right?
Yep.
So if he can show it to them this year, I still think this year's a year where you're not looking at them as a playoff team. But are they a team that could maybe ruin playoff hopes for another team, as specifically in their division? We all know Week 18 is a division game, right? What if Indy or Jacksonville or Houston are right there? What if the division's that tightly knit where a loss to Tennessee can knock you out from a division winner to, with how stacked the AFC, you could go from being a division winner to completely out of the playoffs. So Tennessee, to me, is a team where I don't see them making a huge impact on a week in, week out basis, but they are a team that I think if Levis develops and grows, they could really dictate who comes out of the AFC South as the division winner. And with how stacked the AFC is, I mean, we can go through the whole conference as we continue to move closer to the season, but with how stacked the AFC is, Tennessee could be the team that stops Houston or Indy or Jacksonville, whoever they get matched up in Week 18. They could be the team that stops that team from making the playoffs or stops that team from winning the division. So it's going to be interesting, but I actually thought getting rid of Vrabel wasn't the right move. I liked Vrabel. I think the players liked Vrabel. I think the fans liked Vrabel. But at some point, right, you got to draw your line, right? Like, hey, it's been 5 years with you. We've done nothing but losing the divisional round or losing the wild card round. Like, that's as far as we've gotten. Like, we've got to try something new. And they went with an offensive guy because they're hoping that guy can develop Levis. I can't remember the name of who their head coach is off the top of my head, but like they went in an offensive direction, which we understand.
Not Frank Reich.
It's an offensive league, right? Like, so going in that direction makes sense. But at the same time, Brian Callahan. Yeah. So it is a guy that's helped develop quarterbacks, and that's what they're relying on. And if they can develop this guy, they've got their guy. They've got him on a rookie contract. All right, we went 6 wins or 7 wins this year, but we won games we probably shouldn't. The games we lost were close games. We believe in our quarterback. All right, we're going to start throwing money at people. Give me some wide receivers. Give me this. Give me that. You'll end up with a top 10 draft pick. Like, so it is something that you really can work on. And I'm just looking at it now. You could see their number 1 overall pick was another roll tider for you with Latham, who I remember saying, God, I really hope he falls to Dallas. I knew it wasn't going to happen, but I was really hoping for it because he looked like a freaking mauler. So, I mean, Tennessee to me is just an interesting team since we're talking about the AFC South. They're not there with the other 3 teams in their division, but they're a team that might have an impact on how this season actually unfolds when it comes down to the AFC South and maybe the AFC as a whole. So it's going to be interesting to see. But no, I don't trust Levis. There was not enough consistency. Like, he wasn't even consistently bad, which I guess is a good thing. But there wasn't enough consistency with that offense for me to sit there and say, hey, like, this guy has a bright future, and if he doesn't do it this year, then that top 10 pick is going to be looking at a quarterback. And like I know you've mentioned, you're not a big fan of this quarterback class, but doesn't really matter because teams are going to draft quarterbacks and hope they get it right. So I think that's an interesting tidbit team to watch this year. I think they'll be interesting.
I agree. Definitely interesting, but again, just don't know how good. And I'm just pumped to be talking football again, though.
It's that time of year, baby.
It's that time of year.
Football!
And today, I'll be honest, I don't know how you felt, but today kind of felt like a fall day.
Oh, yeah.
Today kind of felt like, today was the first day I walked outside, and I was like, wow, like, I am not warm.
Yeah,
like, I'm nice. I was good, but I was.
Why do you think the guns aren't out, bro? I'm over here in a spring jacket because I left my house. It was 58 degrees at 7:30 this morning.
It was 75 when I took Louis to the dog park. So but that was like perfect. It was, great great weather today. But I just hope we're trending towards more of that, just because that means more and more football going on. We got somebody in chat shouting something out.
Yeah, we got our fighting Irish brother. I always forget
Timmy.
So we got Timmy in there. He agrees with us. Thinks Vrabel's a great coach. Brian Callahan hooked us up with that one.
Yeah.
And then added, most appropriately, football. Thanks for joining us, Timmy. Appreciate you, my man.
Thank you, my man. And thank you for joining me as well. I actually have been meaning to do a podcast with Timmy as well about something non-sports related. Meant to meet up with him Friday, but then, like I told you, unfortunately, Louis got hurt. I had to take him to the vet. So
don't worry, Louis okay. Everybody.
Louis okay. Louis doing good. It's kind of why he's not up here as much probably tonight. But he's doing much better, doing good, but a little scared. You know, 'cause you never want to see your little brother hurt.
No, they're family.
So,
man.
but I owe Timmy a phone call. I got to give him a call. But besides that, I mean, I wanted to leave us today with something that I found online just to pump us up.
Okay.
I want to leave with some energy tonight. But before anybody does that, what I want them to do is like, subscribe, follow, share, do all the fun, free things you could do for us. Don't cost you a dime more than anything but your time. Just hit the button. That's all we ask. Tell them where they can find you, Dave.
Well, just real quick to back him up on that, like, sadly, I mean, been doing this now with Eric for, I think, we're like 3 months in now, right? Like, I just subscribed today while I was loading up and we were getting ready for the show, and it's literally like, hit a button.
That easy. So,
it's as easy as blinking, I promise. But yeah, no, you can find me, David Hastings 23 on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. I know people are still debating back and forth. It's illegally called X, but I'm a Twitter guy.
Twitter X.
So Twitter X. But yeah, David Hastings 23. We can't forget our boy Joey. Sadly, couldn't be here with us today.
He'll be with me next week while you're over in Lisbon, right?
So it actually depends on when you guys do the show, because I get back Monday night.
Okay.
Now, if it's Tuesday, I may be exhausted because I don't even land in Newark till 9, and I was an idiot and didn't take Tuesday off from work. So I'm not even going to get back to my house till probably, I'd say, 10:30, 11 o'clock, and then I have to somehow wind down, fall asleep, and get up at 7 a.m. to go to the office. So if it's a Tuesday, I might be
What you should do is listen to this
right
when you get up in the morning. Like, set your alarm to this. Is what I want you to do. But, so if you're going to work anyway, hey, speaking of our unofficial fourth co-host here, Louis, you follow him at Louis Aussie Dude. Follow us at Die on This Hill on Facebook, on YouTube, or follow me on X at The Living Legend. And until next week, don't be afraid to have an opinion. Die on this hill and get pumped up with us here, because I think this is going to be pretty fun and interesting.
It's why you came here. This is part of the reason. You gotta fight through this. Everybody's done it this war, those jerseys. It's hot, it's humid, we don't give a It's about toughness and speed. Not looking for a way out. Nobody's looking for a way out. David Jack team ready. David Jack team ready. X-Side.